Welcome to my shop again. Well, today I'm going to do a natural edge Koa bowl. Fred from Hawaii gave me a piece of Koa here. It's real nice and special. So I want to talk about a number of things of orienting it and capturing the color and character and going through the bowl process. So stay tuned and we'll show you how I do this. All right, let's take a look at what we're working with. Have a piece of koa from a friend of mine, Fred in Hawaii, and aloha to those Hawaii viewers. I want to try to work with my planning, my thinking here a bit. This is kind of square. I just took the corners off a little bit to see what was going on with it, but kind of a square piece. But look what's happening here. See the grain character? The pith is not in the middle of the piece. And so if I make a bowl, a bowl that most people I think would start off with a bowl facing the pith with the bottom where the bark is, then I can capture some of this color contrast. I want to try to capture some of the best I can, the color between the fruitwood and the heartwood here. So if we put a bowl like that, the grain orientation is going to be real wacky. And this is one that I did just a roughed out pieces and finished. But you can see the color is not balanced, and the grain orientation in it is not balanced. See the circles here instead of them being down in the middle of the bowl. So that's to me, and you can see where the pith is. The pith is from here to here. It's off center, and so that's not my first choice because it doesn't have a balanced grain. If you like this kind of thing, that's fine. Go for it. Not a right and a wrong here, just a preference. I prefer to have the grain and color balanced the best I can. And because the pith is so far off center, if I make my bowl over here where the grain is balanced, then I'm going to lose the color contrast on a good share of it. So I'm going to do it the opposite way. I'm going to make the bowl face, the rim face the bark, and that way I'm going to capture a ring all the way around the piece. I'll capture the white area all the way around, and hopefully then it's not going to be such a problem of the grain orientation not being in the center because my main feature that I want to capture is the color contrast. Okay, so we're going to put this on the lathe with this towards the headstock, this towards the tailstock, so that I can prepare my chucking method here and have access to it easier with my live center than my drive center. So I always start between centers. I always start on my balance point, and knowing that balance point now is probably not going to be my first axis. I'm going to probably move it a bit to try to capture the wings of my natural edge bowl to have those balanced, the high spots and low spots. So we'll show you how I'm going to do that. All right, on the balance point now, so I have the speed of the lathe up. Sharp edge going right into the side of the trees, going to make it easier. No bouncing. Just kind of get those corners off, get it round. Quick and easy. So we're almost round now. So I want to start to take a look. Let's take a quick look at this top edge here from the overhead view. And I'm going to just hold my finger here a minute and rotate this around. Woo! Look at here. Perfectly. Top edge, high point on this side and this side are nice and balanced. So let's look at my low point. My low point's here, right? The lowest part of the natural edge. And where's it over here? Oh, wait a minute. I'm an inch off. So I want to tilt this now. Look in the lower camera there. I want the top edges to be parallel to the table when it sits on the table. And I want the low edges to be parallel to the table. I don't want it tilted. And that way it's going to give me the grain orientation color that I want also. So let's move that up. So I'm going to release my tailstock. And we're going to tilt it up. I need to move it an inch, but I move this a ½ inch, but that's a lot, so I'm not going to move it that far. I'm going to move it maybe a ¼ inch. Tighten it back up again, because I'm just roughed out at this stage. All right, so I moved it, so you see that it's wobbling. Turn the speed back up. Make sure it doesn't vibrate the lathe. Face shield, always. Let's chew it up again. Taking a slower pace this time so I can have a cleaner cut. When I rough out the bowl and make more of a bowl shape here, what's going to happen is that edge right here is going to go away, and the lower edge is going to creep up a bit. So I want to do that, kind of give myself a rough shape of the outside of the bowl first before I move my axis again. I probably will move it again to true that up, but I want to give myself more information about exactly where that lower edge is going to be. The top edge is pretty much established because I'm round on both top edges pretty much. Just got a little tiny chainsaw cut here. So once I get that back shape a little bit roughed out, that'll give me more information about my lower edge. See how it wants to bounce because of all of the air spaces? So I just take it slow. Now I think you can see I'm starting to get a little bowl profile here. Right? And that's starting to define this lower edge. Okay, so now if I point at that lower edge here to here, wow, look at there. It's almost right on. Maybe I don't have to move it. Very cool. I'm liking what I see. Going to have a nice color contrast all the way around. Very cool. Alright, so this is going to be a fairly shallow bowl. I want to make it a nice football shape so that it reveals the color and character. This is really special wood. Rather than a straight-sided bowl with a flat bottom, that's not going to show the wood off as well. So I want to make a football shape here. I've talked about this many times, but I don't use chucks, and this is another reason why I don't use chucks. I don't want to waste away any of this wood. I'm going to use a glue block with a sacrificial glue block and CA glue so that I can use 100% of this, and I can make the bottom of my bowl come very, very close to this waste wood here. Prepare a nice, safe, stable chucking method, which is a glue block, much stronger than a chuck, much safer than a chuck, more reliable. Alright, gonna go to a scraping cut, clean up that surface so it's nice and clean for my glue. Alright, now I have it on my glue block, all ready to go since I established my axis between centers. Again, it's still just roughed out at this stage. I've used this glue block method many, many times. It's in my DVD, it's in my other YouTube clips, so check that out if you want to use that method. Now we have to be real serious about grain orientation. I want to make sure I go the correct way to the grain. The grain is running perpendicular to the lathe bed, and so all of my cuts so far have been right into the side of the tree, which is easier than going into the end grain. So I rough it out into the side, but now I got to get serious about my shape, and I want to go from the bottom to the rim so I have supported fibers. So, in order to go downhill, I can't do a push cut because the headstock is in the way, and I have my bevel support, so I'm going to use a pull cut, and that's defined also in my bowl DVD and other places, but just quickly here. So in order to do the pull cut, handle down, my bevel is going to be on the side now, bevel supported, and the steep angle now slices through the fiber cleanly. Pencil trick that I use. So let's just catch the top of these corners here for a second. Alright, now it's starting to get that line nice and rounded. Alright, so now we're going to shear scrape this, lower the handle. Now I have the shape all done and shear scraped. Everything is nice and clean and perfect. Let's do the inside. I'm going to hog this off like I always do, right into the side of the tree for a little bit here to get the mass of the shavings out before we start to make our wall thickness. Right into the side of the tree. Move my handle over here. Now I can get in here and get in the center a bit. So now we're going to work over here. So let's get the tool rest right where we're going to work. We're going to do it in stages. I'm going to do this relatively thin, probably about 1/8 of an inch, because this is a decorative bowl. It's not going to be a functional bowl, so I'm going to make it thin. I'm going to make a small foot on it so that the language that I'm speaking throughout this whole process is going to be fragile, delicate, creative, artistic, maybe not functional. My goal is not to make a functional bowl, so I'm going to speak the language in my design decisions to make it less and less functional, and that means a thin wall. So I've got my tool rest up here close, and going to continue the push cuts. Again, the grain orientation issue dictates that I go from the rim to the bottom. Never pull out on the inside of the bowl. You'll be tearing up the grain. Look at that overhead view again, the area that I'm working. Let's measure that. And looking on the outside, rub on the inside. I'm a little bit thick towards the bottom. Can't cheat here. With the natural edge is going to show my wall thickness, so I need to make it perfect. I can make an adjustment, line up my bevel with the existing surface. but I want to go a little bit deeper, so I'm going to push my handle. I'm going to push my handle away from me a little bit to start my cut. Slowly so that it doesn't bounce. Mostly air spaces here, so I have to go slow. I can't force it into the air spaces. Stop and measure. So this is a sequence. We're going to go in stages. We're going to stop and measure, stop and measure. Woo! Now I got it perfectly uniform. Well, I'm thinking in fractions. I'm going to take about a third of this, and then we're going to go sharpen with my last cut. All right, brand new sharp tool. What's left over I'm going to have to sand. I'm going to take about half of this, line up the bevel with the existing surface. There's a little whisk of a shaving. I'm lined up, come back out, move it over, take about half of that. Swinging my handle slightly because it's a curved line. Take another stage, and that's the process. One stage at a time, make it uniform, go on to the next stage. Why do I need to do it in stages? Because this is going to flex and vibrate if I try to make it thin all in one pass. So have to do it in stages. So let's take another stage here. When I start on the last cut for the second stage, I'm going to line up my bevel with the first stage and then just proceed right through it, pretend it's not there, and continue on a nice arc. Slow pace across the wood. Fast lathe speed. Swinging my handle to make a curved line. Letting the bevel follow the line. All right, go sharpen one more time. This is actually the 6th time that I sharpen on the inside of the bowl so that I don't have to sand. That's very nice and clean in there. Woohoo! Nailed it. I love it. Okay, we see a little water, a little moisture coming out here, so this is still too wet to sand. I'm going to take a break, go to lunch, and come back and sand this before I take it off and get all this nice and clean. Not much sanding to do on the outside, sand at 220, 320. The inside I have a few little transition marks between the stages, but those will sand out really easy because there's no torn out grain sharpened between each cut in every stage, so that I make a very clean surface here that doesn't need to be sanded much. Natural edge and not very functional bowl, so a small foot was going to say less function, so I made a little mark there where that's going to be the size of my foot. Get rid of the other stuff here, pull cut, slicing through the fibers cleanly with the handle way down on my pull cut. Okay, then I can shear scrape that. I have just a little bit of a foot there. All right, right here is nice and smooth, continuous line to my bowl. I've got a little bump here and another little bump here. That will sand away very easily. If I take the bump down, then I'll leave a divot on the other side. I don't want to, I'm pretty thin here. I'm only 1/8 of an inch thick anyway. So we're pretty much done. I'll just sand these transmission marks out by hand. Take my spindle gouge, do my normal little detail here, roll a little bead. Clean it up on the inside so I don't have to sand it, and we're done. Okay, we have her done. See what it looks like sitting on the table. All right, what I did is I softened this edge, sanded it nice and rounded over so that it would be nice and huggable and friendly, not have any sharp corners there. So now the reveal. Let's put some finish on it and watch the color of that Koa pop. I'm just using a wiping varnish, just a Watco Danish oil. But ooh, look at what happens. The lights aren't really great with all of the fluorescent lights to be able to see very well, but I think you get the idea. Now I have this nice white color around with the Koa deep red brown in the center. So very pleased with it. So keep in touch and take a look at my website for the live remote demos where, you know, these little projects are just little 5-10 minute segments of things. I have a 2.5 hour demo where I cover all of the subjects of a topic on my website. So take a look at that and stay tuned. Keep in touch for the next one. And stay safe. See you next time.